The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut off?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
And action.
Read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship,
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
and no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB Newsroom. MPs have voted against all of the House of Lords amendments to the illegal migration bill. The draft legislation as a whole would prevent people from claiming asylum in the UK if they arrive through unauthorised means. Well, earlier, Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick said the bill must be allowed to become law without being weakened. He urged MPs to remember the main goal should be tackling the small boats crisis.
We believe that inaction is not an option, that we must stop the boats, and that this bill is a key part of our plan to do just that. The message and the means must be absolutely clear and unambiguous. If you come to the UK illegally, you won't be able to stay here. Instead, you'll be detained and returned to your home country or removed to a safe third country. There is simply no point in passing legislation that does not deliver a credible deterrent and provides the means to back it up.
A new drug has been hailed as a turning point for Alzheimer's. Donanemab has been found to slow clinical decline by up to 35%, meaning that people with the disease could still go about performing day-to-day tasks. Alzheimer's Research UK says we're entering a new era where the disease could become treatable. The drug is being assessed to see if it can be used in the NHS. Russia says its defence ministry is preparing for a response to the overnight attack that damaged the road bridge linking Crimea to southern Russia. Satellite images show the damage, which President Putin blames Ukraine for, calling it cruel and senseless. The bridge is a major supply link for Russian troops fighting in Ukraine. Kyiv has not claimed responsibility. British tourists continue to face extreme heat as global temperatures soar. Greece recorded 40 degrees, with 2 wildfires raging through coastal towns near Athens and forcing residents to flee their homes. Meanwhile, in Spain, temperatures could rise to as high as 44 degrees in some regions this week. Scientists warn that climate change will make heat waves more frequent, more severe and deadly. And Queen Camilla celebrated her 76th birthday today. A 41-gun salute by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery Battery took place in Green Park to mark the special occasion. It's Her Majesty's first birthday since becoming Queen, meaning it's the first time the day has been honoured with a military display. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon and I'm joined by an impeccably balanced panel tonight. We have official Jewish person Josh Howie and literal Nazi Leo Kearse. That's according to some tweets that I sent. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry for those intros, lads. But how are you? How is your lived experience tonight?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Good. I always think we should make this section funny at the start. What do you think?
I think let's go anti-comedy.
Yeah, just awkward bants.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Anyway, it's the A team tonight, guys. It's the OG official Headliners lineup. So let's just absolutely smash it out of the park. And let's have a look at Tuesday's front pages. So the Daily Mail goes with turning point in fight against Alzheimer's. The Guardian has clamour to approve drugs hailed as turning point on Alzheimer's. The Telegraph, Wallace, UK will pay for tanks but not troops. That's Ben Wallace, of course, Defence Secretary. The Eye, breakthrough Alzheimer's drug could be available on NHS by 2025. The Times has BBC faces official review of unsustainable licence fee model. Fun story there. The Daily Star, nerds versus aliens. Very important story, as always, from the start, and those were the front pages. All right, let's start with the Mail, Leo.
So they lead with this Alzheimer's drug, which slows the disease by up to 60%, according to this trial. The drug is called donanemab, which, I mean, it could be easier to pronounce for people with cognitive decline. I mean, the trouble with having Alzheimer's, you're going to have trouble actually just buying it over the counter. I guess doctors will prescribe it or whatever. But it gives people apparently at least a year of extra time without their disease progressing. So the drug attacks and destroys build-ups of a protein called amyloid, and it paves the way for Alzheimer's to become treatable, like a sort of just an ongoing endemic condition like asthma. So that is amazing. And this trial, so they found that people given the drug in the trial had these amazing effects. The people given the placebo didn't have these amazing effects. So I feel a bit sorry for them. They entered the trial.
Got it.
But the good thing is that
so you're doing this for science, guys.
Yeah, but they're not going to remember they're on the trial.
Right, there is that.
Not too gutted. But this is it's a huge deal. The other big thing is that it shows how if you get to it earlier, it has a greater impact. Also, the good thing is that it's going to save money, not just for because it's such a it takes so many people die of it and whatnot and have this condition for years, but also it sort of somewhat cures once you get to a certain point and these cells in the brain go, but you don't have to keep on taking the drug for a bit. So at least it's not something you necessarily have to take forever and ever. It's just whilst you have the condition. So it's brilliant. I mean, I feel a little bit annoyed because the reason I had a lot of kids was that I was going to future-proof myself, and now it's kind of useless if this drug is in place.
Right, you wasted a lot of time there. That was the sole reason you did it.
Yeah, then I was guaranteeing that someone would wipe my bum.
There's still other stuff that can go wrong, and your bum.
You might be in the placebo group, Josh. So your bum.
I was going to say something about Josh's bum, but I'm not sure what it was now. No, there's other things that can go wrong with your bum.
Yeah, piles. What else?
Yeah, piles.
Okay,
Great TV. All right. So, let's move on. Well, let's retain some viewing figures. Let's do the Times now, John.
Yes, obviously they've got the Alzheimer's story as well. They've also got a little story about how the US Treasury Secretary was basically spiked in China and ate lots of mushrooms. And there's a video of her like bowing a lot. But the big one is, I'm sure that everybody will love to get into, BBC faces official review of unsustainable licence fee model. This is on the news that after being frozen for the last 2 years, the BBC licence fee is going to go up from like £159 possibly to 172. And so there's going to be an official review as to whether we're going to continue with it. Basically, 500,000 people are paying it less now, and I think that part of it is because there are lots of reasons, but I do think that the whole Netflix model, as people are, obviously there's cost of living and whatnot, but we're used to paying for media now, and also cancelling the media that we don't want. So if we get Netflix and it suddenly turns all rubbish, we're like, you know what, I'm going to stop that subscription fee.
Yeah, which is what people have done with the BBC, because it's a bit rubbish. So, yeah, people would rather pay for Netflix. I mean, the BBC, they say, oh, we produce such wonderful stuff. If it's so wonderful, why have you got to force people at gunpoint to pay this licence fee? Apparently...
is it guns now? Is it gunpoint?
A third, I mean, any state coercion ends with a gun pointed at your head. But a third of women that are convicted for non-payment of the licence fee. So they're guilty. The BBC is guilty of misogynist brutality on an industrial scale.
They're attacking Andrew Tate all the time. They're the real misogynists, the BBC.
Well done. How long?
Okay. Minutes, Josh.
Minutes into the show.
I've been attacked so much about that today. Let's move on from that. But do you think, though, my question is, either of you, that is it just the anachronistic nature of the model, the licence fee model versus subscriptions, or is it also just that BBC have failed in their remit to be impartial? If they really were impartial, do you think people would still give them a chance?
They don't represent so many people in the population. I mean, if you're a Brexiteer or if you're right wing, where are you represented on the BBC?
Maybe they need to sort of branch off I have a lot of issues with the BBC News department, which is very different from what you also get. There are other parts of the BBC which do provide value for money, arguably.
Which are those?
Sports coverage.
Live at the Apollo.
I mean, the thing is...
Actually, you know what? You're not making my case.
Fair enough. I mean, it's an important story, but it's so great to be part of GB because we are attacked all the time, but we are part of the disruption of... We are at the part, I don't want to sound too grand, of the dawn of the new era of news media.
I thought you were going to say Age of Aquarius.
No, but, you know, we are kind of important, guys, and especially me because I'm host.
No, absolutely.
Let's have a quick look at your favourite paper, Leo, The Guardian.
The Guardian. So they have the benefit cap exposing a deep split in Labour. So Keir Starmer had said he's not going to scrap the two-child benefit cap. That means that, you know, if you have more than 2 children, you don't get extra benefits for those children, which probably means the third child is shunned by the rest of the family. You know, you're the reason we can't go to Tenerife. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. Normally, I hate anything that involves taxes being given to feckless poor people. That's just, you know, anathema to me.
You sort of think like a Victorian slumlord.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you stick it to Labour, suddenly you're happy for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's causing a schism in the party, but I think Keir should actually agree. This is something that I agree with the left of Labour on. I mean, I think we need more children. We need more babies being born in this country. We've got a terrible population decline. We're facing this demographic cliff because people aren't having enough children.
Right, but is that true even if they're sort of going to be on benefits and stuff? Would you even say that if they're not going to be able to contribute, would you still say that?
Well, if the option is like, you know, some guy from like Syria possibly was in ISIS coming across and ripping up his passport, you know, versus, you know, a poor person having a baby, I mean, it's a tough choice for me.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was saying.
But I mean, the other important things to remember is, number one is this policy that was brought in to get people back into work. It's been proven not to work. So that's the policy doesn't work in and of itself. And number two is it's put like 250,000 households into poverty.
Oh, yeah, but poverty isn't poverty in this country.
Well,
Poverty's like, oh, I don't have a speedboat. He's got a speedboat. I don't have a speedboat.
Well, I think
poverty.
Poverty still ain't a good thing, even without speedboats or not.
No, I've actually been on benefits. I am sympathetic. It's very tough being on benefits, and it's very hard to get out once you're on them because of the benefits trap.
Yeah, you'll make it one day, Nick.
I'll make it one day.
But if you have enough kids, you can get out of the benefits trap.
That's true. But the funny thing about it is Starmer trying to deal with his party, because he comes up with this, he goes, oh, he's trying to get elected. He's got the unions, he's got the left of his party, then he's got the fact that he needs to get elected. He is in a near impossible impossible position.
But I don't think that this is particularly coming from the far left. I'm sure that they're enjoying this, but I think there's a lot of moderate, and I think it's a strategy choice. He is fixated on going into the election with the balanced books. That's his big fear, is Tories turning around and saying, you can't pay for this.
Right.
But that's not why people didn't vote for Labour last time. It was a lot to do with Brexit. It was a lot to do with how toxic Corbyn was.
Right,
And also
but he's worried about being seen as the spending pie. Go on.
Well, this policy also seems like communism. You know, China had the one-child policy.
Yes.
This feels very similar.
The two-child policy is very
Two-child
similar. Hey, we're going one better than China.
You're not sort of banned from having them, but, you know, you don't get the benefits.
You're definitely discouraged. All right, let's have a quick look at this very important story in the Star, Josh.
Yeah, nerds versus aliens. So this is Anonymous. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
They've managed to hack Church of Scientology and various corporations and whatnot. They're saying they're going after all this stuff about aliens now. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's definitely been more has been coming out recently. And I've got a friend of mine who's just constantly sending me links on WhatsApp. It's incredibly annoying. I know, but he's just like, why aren't the media covering this? And he thinks I'm somehow in on...
Quick question, is it Lewis Schaefer?
It is not Lewis Schaefer. He would literally be here. So they are saying that they're now going to go and find this information. I wouldn't be surprised if they do uncover loads of stuff and there were aliens and everything has been hidden for years and whatnot.
Or they could just make stuff up. Because, I mean, how are you going to tell if it's been hacked or if it's just been made up by some nerd?
Yeah, but I wonder if we've been prepared enough now, if we've seen enough films, if there's been enough disinformation out there where suddenly you'd be like, oh, yeah, there's aliens, so what?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain there are. The only time I got suspicious was when the Pentagon said there was, then I was like, maybe there aren't. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like whatever they say. It's like the mainstream media. Whatever they say, it's probably the opposite.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to be attacked, by the way, by Matthew Sweet saying that there are aliens?
Good point.
Do you know what I mean?
Long thread about how there aren't or there are. Which will he go with?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that the far left are kind of pro-anti-alien.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So he'll write an anti-pro-alien thread against us coming up.
We'll see. Let's
Don't
find
mention
out.
his name, though. You're not supposed to mention his name. It's like Beetlejuice.
I just know for a fact if there are aliens, I'm going to be paying for them to stay in, like, hotels and Butlins and stuff.
We'll get to that story in the next section.
Yeah, all right. That is it for part one. But coming up, Lord Heseltine's Marshall Plan, Keir Starmer meets Stonewall, plus our obligatory 7 trans stories. See you in 2 minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to. by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Headliners OGs. Leo Kearse, there he is in all his glory, and Josh Howie. Look at that, the original gangster. Let's do the Telegraph now. And Lord Heseltine wants to build a big, beautiful wall around Europe, and Mexico is going to pay for it. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Beautiful wall.
Yeah. Lord Heseltine calls for a Marshall Plan of aid to poor countries to bring down immigration. As he points out, if we think we've got a lot of immigration now, with more droughts, with famine, we're going to see millions and millions coming over to Europe. He says to fight that, he says, I, first of all, build like a wall, not a literal wall, but essentially...
Protective barrier. What does he mean?
Well, he's saying a physical protective barrier, but he's also talking about another barrier of making the countries around Europe so good by giving them so much money that people then won't want to come to the UK.
Foreign aid.
And actually, if you think this has been a long-term Tory plan for the last 13 years to make the country so rubbish that no one actually then wants to come here. So they've done really, really well.
Are you laughing ironically there, Leo? I thought it was a decent point.
That's the first time I heard you laugh properly.
It's a very Tory laugh.
I don't know, I thought it was a reasonable point. I mean, and what do you think to this, Leo? Because foreign aid can work. I heard it described earlier today, though. Sometimes it can just be poor people in rich countries sending money to rich people in poor countries who are corrupt and they don't distribute it.
This is the thing. The people who come across, the people who make it to the UK aren't poor people. They're rich people. It's only rich people that can afford to pay the people traffickers. It costs thousands of pounds. Like my mate Mo, he's from Somalia. He's from like a really sort of well-to-do family in Somalia, by Somalian standards. You know what I mean? So
apart from the victims of modern slavery, they do exist.
And he came across, did he?
Yeah, but I mean, victims of modern slavery. I mean, like I don't know. If you watch the videos of people coming across, I don't know if people are getting trafficked by their slave vessels or whatever. They're reenacting the Atlantic slave trade. That's something else. But the people that are paying the people traffickers, they cost a lot of money, so they're not poor.
So can this work then? So you're a bit sceptical on the foreign aid part, but can the barrier? I don't even understand what it is really, this barrier, but can it work?
Oh, I'm not sure about the barrier. I mean, that would probably just be paying Turkey to take people in refugee camps and stuff. But I mean, we've got to look. You know, people think that if we somehow destabilise local markets with aid, you know, if we flood it with aid, so people can't sustain themselves. No, with aid. Well, they tried that already. But
controversial.
Matthew Sweet's
other opinions available. We don't think that really, stuff like that.
But it's the cultures and institutions in some of these countries that don't allow prosperity to flourish. So you can't really aid your way out of that problem.
Okay, well, fair enough. I think the one positive I take from this is that people are actually taking the problem seriously. You know, even on the Remain side with Heseltine, and even on the Labour side, which we'll get into later with the migrant barges. But let's do the Mail next. And
spoiler alert.
Yes, because that's a big one. That's coming down the pipe. Look out, they'll stay up for that. The Mail now, and trans prisoners are being moved out of women's jails. Why is everyone trying to erase their existence, Leo?
I know, it's disgusting. So trans prisoners are being moved out of women's jails after the Ministry of Justice tightened rules to prevent female inmates following the Isla Bryson scandal. Isla Bryson was a double male rapist. He wasn't double male, he's male.
He was very male, though.
Yeah, he was very male, definitely male, even when he was dressed up.
Face tattoos.
Face tattoos. Penis, the works, everything you needed to be male.
Yeah, like Andrew Tate, the whole thing.
So they're moving trans prisoners from female prisons to male prisons. I don't know whether there's an obvious solution here. Just move them to male prisons that identify as female prisons.
Good point.
Then everybody's happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Isla Bryson really sort of, you know, showed the issue with men being able to abuse the rules for self-identification and say that they're trans and sort of fake it. So, you know, there's genuine trans women, and then there's, like, you know,
there's
Isle of
fakers,
Branson.
and there's a statistic that, what is it, that it says that men jailed for sexual offences are twice as likely to identify as trans women than men jailed for other types of offences. So it's clearly a scam going on. And the Ministry of Justice here says, well, look, 90% of transgender women in custody are held in men's prisons. It needs to be 100%, doesn't it, Josh?
Well, that's it. Well, they've identified 168 legally male trans women in prisons across. Yeah, so the fact that they are now putting these people who've committed violent crimes into male prisons from female prisons, biological males, by the way. And when some people think of trans, they think of trans women, they think of people who've had surgery who have been on hormones. 97%, I think, haven't been on hormones, haven't had any surgery. They're intact males with the same committing offences rate as biological men, if not greater. And so it's like the government are going, oh, well done. They expect a pat on the back for doing this, which this situation shouldn't have happened.
I agree with Josh. Let's give them a pat on the back.
Well, they expect a pat on the back, and the fact is this happened under a Tory government, and it's wrong. And for them to turn around now and go, oh, now we're finally doing something about it, it's like, yeah, but this happened under your watch.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like this is a win, but it's also kind of sad that this is a win, that we're at the stage of, hey, can we take men out of female prisons? And we're like, yeah, win for the culture war.
Labour are getting in next year, so they're going straight back in those women's prisons. So, yeah, I mean, if you think... I mean, this is... I think we should cherish every little win.
There won't be any crime under a Labour government. Don't worry about it.
Well, speaking of that, let's go
Nothing worth nicking.
Let's do the next story, then, which is about Keir Starmer, and he's met the head of Stonewall for a lovely chat about women's penises, Josh.
Indeed.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, with Keir Starmer unable to define what a woman is, no wonder Stonewall is targeting Labour's top team. So this is in the Daily Mail. They've done a sort of double report across 2 days into Stonewall, a big sort of investigation. And in this part of it, they revealed how it seems like most people would accept that it seems like Labour are going to be getting into the next government, and Stonewall are making a concerted effort to attach themselves to Labour. One of the chairs of Stonewall actually was like a long-standing member of the Conservative Party and their business champion or whatever. So the fact that they're sort of now going after Labour, the question is, to what end is this going to happen? Because we've seen how Stonewall has become this organisation now fighting for gay rights, which are arguably an equality, which were achieved with equal marriage and whatnot. Then they needed something to do, and that's why people say they fixated on this trans thing.
Well, yeah, the original founders of Stonewall, like Simon Fanshawe, he says it's drifted way out of its
original remit. Absolutely. Yeah. So now they're going for it, and they're pushing through stuff like self-ID. They're pushing through stuff in our schools. Yeah. The question is Starmer just kind of meeting them just out of politeness, or will this actually make an impact? I think he still doesn't get it. Yeah, he still doesn't get how important this issue is. People try and sort of fob it off as this, like, culture wars, and it doesn't matter. This matters to people, and the more people hear the insanity that this country and the West at large has gone down, this path that we have sort of blindly walked down or been led down over the last 5-10 years, and the more people sort of go, the moral wrongness of male rapists in female prisons, women's sports and all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's why I'm worried, as Leo said, about a Labour government, because it's going to be so much worse, potentially, on these kind of social issues. And the fact that they haven't clocked this... I mean, the Stephen Nolan BBC report, credit to the BBC, should have ended Stonewall right there, exposed it as a complete scam, but somehow it hasn't. And the fact that they're in 47 government bodies and quangos, they're in the Home Office, the Treasury, Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, Environment Agency, Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, it goes on, as well as Labour, as well as the Bank of England we found the other day. How have they done all this?
I know, but and the huge amount of money, taxpayers' money they get. I mean, they get money from private businesses as well, you know, publicly traded corporations. But in 2021, Stonewall received £2.1 million of taxpayers' money. Like, I don't mind taxes getting paid on things like kidney dialysis machines for people with rubbish kidneys, but spending it on absolute gender woo-woo nonsense to indoctrinate children just seems, what's the point? What's the benefit? What are we getting out of it as a society?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we all agree on that one. So let's move on and do this one in the Times, I believe. And Labour may keep migrant barges if they win the next election, but presumably they'll be kinder, more inclusive barges, Leo.
Yeah, exactly. They'll rebrand them. They'll have a Black Lives Matter sticker on the side or something. But yeah, so Labour, it looks like Labour are going to keep the migrant barges. So migrants could still be housed on barges. And there's 170,000. There's a backlog of 170,000. Yvette Cooper has said they're going to be housing barges and military sites while that backlog is cleared.
She said she'll fast-track it. Will she really fast-track it?
Yeah, what she'll do is just rubber stamp. They'll be like, you know, just going through, like, and they say they're going to fast-track applications, and people from safe countries like Albania, they'll expedite the person's removal. People don't turn up saying, oh, I'm from Albania, I'm from a safe country. What they do is they rip their passport up, throw it in the English Channel. They're advised to by NGOs and human rights activists.
Say they're 14 years old.
And then they say they're 14 years old, they're from, you know, some terrible country where they're persecuted, and they say, I'm a Christian, and I'm gay, or, you know, whatever it is, so you can't send me back because I'll get persecuted. And, so then they get to stay. So basically, what she's saying is anybody who comes across the English Channel gets to stay.
I mean, she doesn't really say that. What she says is, she hasn't said that at all. What she says is she's going to deal with the backlog. What she didn't say was that she would definitely cancel the barges. So the headline is, Labour may keep.
Right. She basically didn't comment on it.
Yeah, and this is because Labour at the moment just don't want to make a commitment to anything.
Right.
That's essentially what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. Because they want to win the election. But they are serious about dealing with it. They recognise it's a problem. They are coming up with ideas to try and fast-track it. They recognise that the cost of housing migrants has gone from £14 under this government to £90 a head. We're spending £500,000...
£90?
£90 per night. Per night.
Yeah.
We're spending £500,000 a day just on empty hotel rooms. This is all, again, under the Tory government. I don't see how a Labour government is going to do worse than that. That's all.
Well, let's watch
that's the challenge. And if they are, I'll be the first to call them out. Yeah. But the fact is, the Tories are just doing absolutely terrible. And they've also got some good ideas about making the two departments, like the Foreign Office and the Home Office, work together better and having like a middle department. There's stuff in here that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but let's not forget that a lot of the migrant crisis is caused by the previous Labour government going into the Middle East and messing things up on a royal scale, you know, killing so many hundreds of thousands of civilians or you know, persecuting this war that led to
They didn't start Syria. Arguably, we wouldn't have this if the Tories had actually gone into Syria and stopped Assad. Anyway,
this could go on forever, but we've got to do the break. That is it for part 2. But coming up, the NHS spends £40 million on obese patients. Germany gets its own GB News, and The Guardian explains comedy to us. Yay! See you in a minute.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Today's showers ease overnight, clear and cool conditions for many, but more rain in places by dawn. That rain arriving from the west, a small frontal system, a slack area of low pressure. Ahead of it, actually a ridge of high pressure helping to kill off Monday's showers in many places. Clear spells widely across England, Wales and Scotland overnight, just a few showers continuing for the north of Scotland. A different story for Northern Ireland, as well as eventually parts of Wales and towards the southwest. Here, clouds thicken, 12 or 13 Celsius by dawn, but towards the north and the east, shelter spots getting off to a cool start, 8, 9 Celsius in one or two places, as well as plenty of sunshine. We'll keep the sunny skies for northern Scotland, as well as the south and southeast of England during the morning. In between, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain, that rain pushing north into central Scotland, affecting much of northern England, Wales and eventually the far southwest. The rain most persistent across parts of Northern Ireland, and under the wet weather, it's going to feel on the cool side. Now, all of that pulls away during Wednesday morning. We keep a cloudy swathe, I think, through northern England into the Midlands, parts of Wales and East Anglia. Showery rain through much of the day here. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers, driest towards the southwest, but we'll keep the showery conditions on Thursday and Friday. And all the while, it is going to turn a bit cooler.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
the Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Headliners. Let's start with Tuesday's Independent. And Esther McVey has said schools should remain open in national emergencies. A great idea, just 3 years too late, John.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what's so frustrating about it. McVey, schools and universities should remain open in national emergencies. As a former cabinet minister, she's also a GB News presenter. And it is obviously nice to hear the stuff, more affirmation as to what a mistake it was, how children's mental health issues, but also their learning, how behind they are, absences from schools, whatnot. It's so frustrating to hear people now go, oh yeah, it was a mistake and that was the advice we got. Well, I'm sorry, you had a moral imperative here. And people were pointing out at the time. And actually, anybody who did point out was like somehow you wanted to kill your grandparents because, God forbid, you wanted your children to actually be able to read and write.
Yeah, there's some moment... did want to, but that was coincidence. Yeah. Go on, Leo.
There's some moment when, like, everybody just suddenly decided, this sort of mob blob that sort of decide everything, like, everybody listens to for some reason, they suddenly change from being like, you're evil, you're not wearing a face mask, you're evil, to, oh, we all made mistakes and we were acting on incorrect advice. Let's all just move on.
And it's the gaslighting. I mean, and look at Gillian Keegan here saying schools were not shut during lockdowns. I'm sorry. What was that then? Was that a hallucination?
I remember losing my voice from screaming at my children how a clock works.
So
I think she just pretty sure. But they basically want to put essentially a law in or guidance that only Parliament can close universities and schools. I think that's a good idea.
They should
it'll be classed as essential infrastructure.
They should have closed the hospitals. I think that would have worked to, you know...
they're doing that now, so it's fine.
I mean, the thing that bothers me is that people have at least learned on the schools that this was a terrible idea, but they haven't learned in general about lockdowns. You know, this is the one thing, though, where people seem to agree that was a terrible mistake and must not happen.
Let's see what happens next time,
Let's see what happens next time. So, let's do the Times. And the NHS has spent £40 million on equipment for obese patients, and apparently it's mainly just massive spoons, Leo.
Yeah, so they've got special beds... They've got stretchers. That's a machine that stretches fat people, so
Yeah.
they're not. Then their BMI isn't the safe scale
that's true.
anymore. It's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. You might have seen it in that documentary. But yeah, and chairs. Basically anything that is a fat person can sit on is what they're spending the money on. But £40 million. I mean, that'd buy a lot of donuts. And yeah, the NHS. This seems ridiculous because it's the NHS that makes people fat. People know that the NHS is there to get their heart started and, look after them and wipe their bum and stuff, so they don't bother looking after themselves.
I've never heard of it. It's the NHS that makes
chicken and the egg.
If you go to a country that doesn't have nationalised healthcare, such as, Ethiopia, somewhere like that, people don't get as...
But what about the United States, though, Leo, where people are absolutely massive and don't have an NHS type thing?
They've probably got some sort of healthcare.
That is completely... Sorry to destroy your argument in 1
Interesting idea.
But, I mean, do you think, Josh, do you think that, the body positive movement will finally die down? Because these stats are kind of hard to ignore.
Well, they'll die.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is that. It's just so obviously bad for you. And then
it's not just bad for you as an individual, it's bad for us as a country. We're spending $6.5 billion a year on it. We have to sort it out. And, it's the food that we have available. It's the cost of that food, because it's usually the cheapest food is the worst for us. And we need it. And it's a problem that's going to get worse.
It's always going to be cheaper to eat a bit less of that food.
Yeah. I was ill the last week and I just didn't eat, lost weight. Who knew?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a problem. I mean, it's $6.5 billion annually it costs, and it reduces productivity 1 to 2% because they can't move about.
We need to reintroduce bears.
That was my little joke at the end, Leo. It wasn't that good. Let's do the Telegraph. And protests by hardline Muslims pose a national security threat. Not my words, I'm just reading the headline, John.
Well, let's see if I can get cancelled in this one. Protests outside schools and cinemas by hardline Muslims pose national security threat. This is a think tank, the Henry Jackson Society, if anybody wants to go and protest against them. It's a 69-page report, Britain's new blasphemy police. And we have seen a few things, very disturbing things. We saw the teacher at the Batley Grammar School who essentially showed and said to the class, you warned them that he was going to show a picture of the cartoon, explained why, and yet now this person is still on the run for their life. 2 years later, you have
a picture of Hugh Edwards.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, the context doesn't seem to matter now, does it?
And then you also had the cinema that was showing a film that was made by Muslims, by the way, but it was the wrong kind of Muslims for another group of Muslims. And so they were protesting outside. And so what this report is saying is that that companies and institutions in this country need to grow a backbone. And the most shameful thing, you also had an autistic 14-year-old who had...
in Wakefield,
with a crime. There was this shameful press conference where the mother and the kid are they're apologising. They're basically begging. It's almost like they're begging for their lives. Next to the police. There are the police as well, going along with it. Instead of saying, you've threatened this kid, you do a death threat, we're going to throw you in jail... They're like, no, they're like, oh, please forgive us.
The ultimate victim blaming.
The police actually punished the child. They punished this 14-year-old autistic schoolboy for...
and it wasn't even his fault.
And they gave him a non-crime hate incident that's going to follow him for the rest of his life. And the people who made the death threats against him, absolutely nothing.
And the point is, we or this country does need to stand up to this, because we don't live in Sharia law. We don't live in a system. We don't live in a theocratic state, and we have to stand up these institutions. There's another clip out there of this poor cinema manager standing in front of 100 protesting Muslims because of this other film which is the Muslims I mentioned that they didn't like, and this poor guy, no police around, and he's having to appease them and saying we're going to cancel it, I'm sorry, because that person was fearful, that person was intimidated. There should have been police there to go, you can protest, but you cannot intimidate.
Yeah, OK, well, I hope some people listen to the report. Let's do the Telegraph now, and Germany has its own version of GB News. Is this a chance for Lewis Schaefer to spread misinformation to an entirely new demographic, Leo?
Possibly. So this is Julian Reichelt, who was a popular broadcaster, but he got, or a tabloid editor, but he got fired over sex scandals, which I should imagine in Germany there's going to be a glass coffee table involved. It's going to be. I've seen some videos, is all I'm saying. So they're launching this. It's online only. They're saying it's the equivalent of GB News.
It'll never work.
GB News goes out in the real telly, so
it's pronounced news, but it's spelled news, but it's news.
Yeah,
that's the correct pronunciation.
But an analyst at Ender's Analysis says German news is notoriously centrist, consensual, and a bit boring. I mean, the trouble with this, they say it's centrist. People would say the BBC is centrist. It's not at all. It's not at all. It's overwhelmingly got a left-leaning bias. I mean, 98% of the comedians who have a political opinion on there have a left-wing opinion.
So, but doesn't this show, Josh, this is a Western widespread thing that mainstream news is failing people?
Absolutely, because as he says here, it's an industry-wide omerta on reporting about certain topics. And so we find ourselves in a position now, and it started with Brexit, but it's also the gender ideology debate. There's all these other things that haven't been commented on, also criticising schools for closing, for example. To show these alternative views, that's exactly why GB News is being successful, as much as people online want to just keep on trying to bring it down. Yeah. Because the fact is people haven't felt listened to. And it's as simple as that. Now, I'm on the left. When this channel was announced, I was excited. I tuned in from day one because I knew that there was stuff that we weren't hearing from the BBC and from Sky. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. It's not a left-right issue. It's about these things not being covered. And then there's a space for in the market.
OK, and I love this guy slept on a camp bed in the office, so military camp bed, so German. But actually, we move on and do this Guardian one quickly, because it's about comedy. Yeah. So basically, the Guardian have gone full Guardian, and they're explaining why the best comedy is kind and inclusive. Kill me now, basically.
Yeah, kind, inclusive and unfunny. Punching up how British comedy became kinder and more inclusive without losing its edge. That's the sort of misnomer, without losing its edge. Yeah. This is actually from a book that someone's written. Different times, a history of comedy.
I looked at David Stubbs' Twitter profile. He's wearing a face mask in his Twitter profile.
Oh, come on.
A face mask.
That is funny. He's still wearing
that. If he's doing it ironically.
No, it's not, because
even Matthew Sweet's not wearing a face mask anymore.
I read this article and it matches with somebody who'd wear a face mask.
Wow. So it's all about how we're kinder now. It's not a comedian's job to be kinder.
Correct.
It's a comedian's job to be funny.
Yeah, and also, he hasn't met these people behind the scenes, and they're not even kind. Yeah. They're pretty horrible.
Yeah, but the people, I don't really want to get too bitchy about it.
I do, because they piled on me on Twitter. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I'd like to get bitchy as well. But yeah, it's Darius's law of comedy. The nicer, the more sort of benevolent, kind somebody is on stage, the more of a horrible, narcissistic, vindictive person they are off stage.
I know. All this stuff about punching up and down is nonsense. Comedy is not about being moral. It's about being funny. Yeah. And we've got to go to the break. But that is it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, zombie cells and French poo. See you in a minute.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Mail. And women are tired of being asked whether they're on their period. It's better just to assume they are, Leo.
Well, apparently so. 1 in 5 women who have had a mental health crisis have been asked if they're on their period, according to this survey. So the correct number is 3 in 5 that are having a mental health crisis or on their period. I don't know. But it's made some women angry, who are probably on their period. But yeah, respondents cited the following triggers for mental health: body image, loneliness, relationship issues, money worries, and 1 in 5 women were reported being told that they were being dramatic, whilst a third were asked if they were overthinking things. So there is some good advice out there for them.
I actually empathise with that, because I get asked if I'm overthinking all the time. So it's not just a men and women thing.
Oh, yeah, and if you're a woman, I'd think you're constantly on your period, Nick.
Thank you for that. Josh, any less awful thoughts?
No, I mean, the thing is, it doesn't say who is asking. Like, is it a family member who's asking if they're on the period? Is it boyfriend, husband, GP, or is it the psychiatrist, whatever? So the fact that they don't... You know, yes, if you're asking... If they're going in to seek medical attention...
All right, you think it's a medical issue? Are you on your period because they're about to do an operation?
Look, let's not kid ourselves. I'm in a long-term relationship. When women are on their period, things can get a bit skew-iffy in terms of... Woo! I just like my relationship. So...
I love how delicately you were dealing with that until the impression thing...
I'm just trying to work out if she's in bed already
watching.
or not.
Yeah. She'll record this.
But then afterwards you sort of go, like, you know, my wife, yeah, she goes a bit insane when she's on a period. And then afterwards, I sort of go... You know, you sort of say, are you, I don't say that, are you, but, you know, I know that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
And then after I say, remember what you were like there? Like, just, can you remember next time that you're on your period that's how it makes you feel, and so we can talk about it?
But to be fair, it's not their fault. They're ruled by the moon. Should we move on and do The Independent? And I only glanced at this one, but I believe it's about zombies which have been eliminated, Josh.
It's a big story. New drug, that eliminates old zombie cells may lead to anti-aging breakthrough. So there's a new molecule that eliminates these zombie cells that stay in our body, and they're bad not just for existing, but they congregate with other zombie cells. They even turn healthy cells into zombies, starts cancers and whatnot. So and it shows also that this drug doesn't harm the healthy cells. So this really is quite a huge story, really. I mean, if it keeps people looking young, because these zombie cells, are what eventually make you look older and all the other elements that come with you. So if they are essentially being wiped out from your body, then, yeah, you're going to stay young and with a bit of a gut.
Could they actually end ageing? Because people like Aubrey de Grey, who's a scientist, he thinks they could end ageing, and it's just cell damage. You can end it and eventually end death, which I'm up for.
Some scientists believe that we're already at the stage where people who are
terminal escape velocity,
middle-aged now, they've reached escape velocity. They'll never die, and it could be
because science will outpace aging, basically.
Yeah, and it could be the thing that means we don't have such a demographic cliff facing us.
But I read a book,
need children,
which is like essentially that's what happens, and then essentially they find out that they basically have to start killing everybody because too many people were...
was this a textbook, or this was a science fiction?
It was by Mr. Lewis S. Hafer.
I love the way his middle initial is S. Lewis, that'd be S. Hafer, wouldn't it? All right, well, all right. Sounds like we've sort of finished that story, but let's do the Mail then. And why sea air is good for you. This is sort of one of those pressing deadline type stories. Someone has to file something.
There's a reason this is story number 17.
I like this story.
So, a neuroscientist has revealed how time spent by the coast helps you think with more clarity. Apparently there are ions in the air. It sounds like a made-up thing to me. And the neuroscientist, it's amazing what they can do with science these days, says that a trip to the beach can also give you a positive sense of awe and wonder. Wow, well worth getting that PhD for that. You can also build a sandcastle. You can have an ice cream. I mean, that's it, really.
That is it. It's
going to the beach is nice.
I think
going to the beach is nice.
No, but the fact that there's some scientific evidence to back it up, and I don't know about you, but going on, well, you're going to find out for yourself, going on family holidays, and you're doing these coastal walks, and all the kids are complaining. But the fact is, there's medical evidence now that it does good for you, looking up to realise that we're one with the universe, to see the grand scope of things.
Did you really need a peer-reviewed document to know that going to the beach is nice?
Leo, I follow the science, OK?
Yeah. The only part that bothered me is it says if you feel you don't belong or are not part of something, you don't produce oxytocin. I was like, maybe that's what's wrong with me.
Well, also, the bit that annoyed me after the whole article, because I really enjoyed it, was you get to the end and then it just turns out to be one of those stupid ads. For some, for Go Jauntly.
We'll probably be sued.
Come on.
For that. All right, well, let's do this one in The Guardian then. It's all kicking off in the world of camping, Josh.
Captured the public zeitgeist, caught to hear appeal against England wild camping ban. Again, this is an actual important story because we have to have access to the land, and what's happened is landowners have been putting up these signs over the last 50 years or so, and we have lost a huge swathe of this country to rich people, essentially. And this is the fight back where this landowner in Dartmouth, I think is, Dartmoor National Park, essentially banned a bunch of people, and now the initial finding was that he got to keep the land and keep these people off, and now this has gone to appeal, and 3,500 people turned up to do this wild camping in protest. It does matter out there. Once we lose this right, it's gone. It's important, and it's nice to see that there are people out there who are taking this to be as important as I think it is.
See, I'm from the country, and I still don't care about this, but people got used to rambling, didn't they, Leo? There's like a rambling tradition, and then this is like anti-rambling, so now they're hitting...
The trouble is you get some people who camp and take all their stuff with them, and you get other people who stay and don't clear up their rubbish. I don't want to name the demographic group. I don't want to get in trouble, but yeah. So not everybody.
What about my family?
Not everybody treats the land that they camp on with the same respect. In Scotland, we've got no trespass laws, I think. Well, I never got in trouble. We're always going and camping up the hills and stuff, but then we don't have... it was grazing land rather than arable land.
Yeah,
so you weren't crushing any crops.
Unfortunately, heroin sort of keeps people in the cities.
OK, I wonder why we didn't lead on the...
I watched Trainspotting.
It's a pity we kept the difference between grazing land and arable land at the end of the show, because that could have kept some people watching. Let's finally do Tuesday's Express, and a man in France has had enough of poo, Leo.
This is great. So there's obviously in France you've got more of a problem with dog poo on the pavement than in the UK.
And human poo.
That explains the smell.
So a mayor of a French town has said he's had enough. So he's putting snipers on tower blocks. No, he's not. He's actually making dogs undergo DNA sampling.
Yeah.
So then they
Saliva
can match.
test. It's a kind of COVID test for dogs.
Then they can match the... And also, if any dogs committed a crime in the 70s...
Well, no, you can resolve paternity suits.
Yeah.
Find out who did the deed.
And they'll be able to find out who did the poo, so, you'll get arrested, or, the owner of the dog will get arrested.
I think it's good, but they actually held this back because of civil rights.
I think it's a civil rights violation. It's authoritarianism gone mad in France. Classic Europe.
Oh, really? Interesting. Are you going to do a podcast?
I've taken the other side on it just because we've got like 10 seconds. I thought I'd go with the other side. All right.
Why don't you do a demonstration of the poo? How the dogs...
All right, we'll do that next time. We've got to go to the papers, guys. Thanks so much. The show's nearly over, but let's have a quick look at Tuesday's front pages. So, the Daily Mail has turning point in fight against Alzheimer's. There it is. The Guardian has clamour to approve drugs hailed as turning point on Alzheimer's. The Telegraph, Wallace, UK will pay for tanks but not troops. The Eye, breakthrough Alzheimer's drug could be available on NHS by 2025. The Times has BBC faces official review of unsustainable licence fee model. And the Daily Star, nerds versus aliens. Classic Daily Star. And those are the front pages. That is it for tonight's show. Thanks so much to Josh and Leo. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. There they are. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, it's good night, good morning, and God bless.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Today's showers ease overnight, clear and cool conditions for many, but more rain in places by dawn. That rain arriving from the west, a small frontal system, a slack area of low pressure. Ahead of it, actually a ridge of high pressure helping to kill off Monday's showers in many places. Clear spells widely across England, Wales and Scotland overnight. Just a few showers continuing for the north of Scotland. A different story for Northern Ireland, as well as eventually parts of Wales and towards the southwest. Here, clouds thicken, 12 or 13 Celsius by dawn, but towards the north and the east, shelter spots getting off to a cool start, 8, 9 Celsius in one or two places, as well as plenty of sunshine. We'll keep the sunny skies for northern Scotland, as well as the south and southeast of England during the morning. In between, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain. That rain pushing north into central Scotland, affecting much of northern England, Wales and eventually the far southwest. The rain most persistent across parts of Northern Ireland. And under the wet weather, it's going to feel on the cool side. Now, all of that pulls away during Wednesday morning. We keep a cloudy swathe, I think, through northern England into the Midlands, parts of Wales and East Anglia. Showery rain through much of the day here. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers, driest towards the southwest, but we'll keep the showery conditions on Thursday and Friday. And all the while, it is going to turn a bit cooler.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on